In this video, we're going to explore an application of quadratic equations. When objects are thrown or hit into the air, both their path and height can be modeled with quadratic equations, and this is because of gravity. Here, we're given that a baseball is hit, and the height of the baseball, h, measured in feet, after t seconds can be modeled by the equation h equals negative 16t squared plus 45t plus 4. We're then asked 4 different questions about this model. The first question we're asked is, what is the height of the baseball the instant it is hit? The second question we're asked is, what is the height of the baseball after 1 second? The third question we're asked is, when does the baseball hit the ground? And the last question we're asked is, when is the height of the baseball 30 feet? Before we get started, let's look at a couple things here. So we have 2 units. We have 2 variables and 2 units. So height, which is measured in feet, and t is our other variable, and t is measured in seconds. So as we look at these 4 equations, it's important to note what's being asked. The first 2 start with, what is the height? So we are to find a height in each of those first 2 questions. The second 2 questions, however, start with when. And when is referring to time. So we need to find a specific time for which, in the first one, the baseball hits the ground, and in the second one, when the baseball has a height of 30 feet. Okay, so now that we've identified those, let's get started with this first question. What is the height of the baseball the instant it is hit? So the instant it is hit is when t equals 0. So we're going to replace t with 0 and find the value of h. So here, we're going to use t equals 0, and so h will then equal negative 16 times 0 squared plus 45 times 0 plus 4. And simplifying that, negative 16 times 0 squared is simply 0. We're adding then 45 times 0, which is also 0, and then we're adding 4. So we see here that h is 4. So when t equals 0, h equals 4. And if we summarize that, in a sentence, we'll say, the instant the baseball is hit, the height is 4 feet. So the instant the baseball is hit, its height is 4 feet. Okay, and so let's take 1 second here to draw what we think is going to be happening with this baseball then. So we have t and we have h, and starting at 4 feet, and then it's going to come into the air, and then it's going to come back down. So that picture will be helpful as we work through these next few questions. The second question, what is the height of the baseball after 1 second? So this is telling us then that t equals 1, and we need to find h. So we're going to replace t with 1 and calculate h. So h will then be negative 16 times 1 squared plus 45 times 1 plus 4. And looking at that, we'll then have negative 16 plus 45 plus 4, and that will simplify to 33. So we can then answer this question and state that the height after 1 second is 33 feet. And I noticed just a second ago that I wrote t equals 1 at the end of this question. That was just a note for myself as to what I needed to do. So let's make sure it doesn't look like that's the answer. T equals 1, we need to find h. And in this first one I wrote t equals 0. We know that t equals 0, and we needed to find h there as well, just to make sure that doesn't look like that's how the question should be answered. Looking at this third one, we're asked, when does the baseball hit the ground? Now, when it hits the ground, we have to think about what's true. When it hits the ground, and looking at our visual then, it's going to be some amount of time, and it's going to be, when it hits the ground, the height is going to be 0. So what we need here is we need h equal to 0, and then we're going to solve that equation. So we can replace h with how it's been defined, which is negative 16t squared plus 45t plus 4, and we're going to solve where that equals 0. So setting that up, we get negative 16 t squared plus 45 t plus 4 equals 0. And from there, we can now use the quadratic formula to solve for t. So we'll have t equal, and then we need the opposite of b, which in this case will be negative 45, plus or minus, and then we write a radical, and inside that square root we're going to put b squared, which is 45 squared, minus 4ac, which will be minus 4 times negative 16, times 4. So I have negative 45 plus or minus the square root and then of the quantity 45 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times 4. And that's all over 2a, which is 2 times negative 16. Doing some of these calculations with a calculator, I'll get that t equals, and then in that numerator I'm going to have negative 45 plus or minus, and I'll do this step by step. So I've calculated 45 squared in my calculator and found it's 2025. And then 4 times negative 16 times 4 is negative 256. So I have 2025 minus a negative 256 inside that radical. And then that whole expression is over negative 32, taking 2 times negative 16. Simplifying this one step further, I'll find that t is then equal to, and in that numerator I'm going to have negative 45 plus or minus the square root of 2,281, and that's all over negative 32. At this point, everything is as simplified as it can be, and so I'll use a calculator to approximate each of these proposed solutions. So the first one I have is that t equals negative 45 plus the square root of 2,281 all over negative 32. And when I put that into a calculator and approximate it, I get negative 0.086, rounding that to 3 decimal places. The second proposed solution I have, so or t is equal to, and then I have negative 45 minus the square root of 2,281 all over negative 32. Now, this one is probably going to be the more realistic one. I have a negative minus a number in the numerator divided by negative. This should be positive. And indeed, when I calculate that using a calculator, I find that t is approximately 2.899. So the negative time doesn't apply here. We weren't measuring the height of the baseball before it was hit with this formula. So we're only going to use t approximately 2.899. So only that one is applicable. So only applicable solution is that second one. Now, we've found that only applicable solution. Let's summarize. Answering this question, when does the baseball hit the ground? The ball hits the ground after about 2.899 seconds. Moving on to this last question, we're asked, when is the height of the baseball 30 feet? And again, this is a when question. And so we're going to find a time, and we're given that the height is 30 feet. So we're going to set h equal to 30. We can now write this equation as negative 16 t squared plus 45t plus 4 equals 30, as we know that h is equal to negative 16t squared plus 45t plus 4. To solve this equation, we'll set it equal to 0 and then use the quadratic formula. So subtracting 30 from each side, we'll obtain negative 16t squared plus 45t minus 26 equal to 0. So using the quadratic formula, we'll find that t is then equal to, and on the right-hand side, we'll use the opposite of b, which is negative 45, plus or minus, and then inside a radical, we're going to put b squared, which is 45 squared, minus 4ac, which will be minus 4 times negative 16 times negative 26. And that's all divided by 2a, which is 2 times negative 16. Simplifying this, I'll use a calculator to simplify what's inside that radical. And so I'll get negative 45 plus or minus the square root of 2025 minus 1,664. And that's all still divided by negative 32 when I take 2 times negative 16. Simplifying this one step further, I'll find that t is then equal to negative 45 plus or minus the square root of 361, all divided by negative 32. Now, the square root of 361 is actually a perfect square. So this will simplify then to t equals negative 45 plus or minus 19, and that's all over negative 32. Now, there are two solutions here, and I'll go through simplifying these to find the exact solutions separately. So the first one I have is that t is negative 45 plus 19 divided by negative 32. Or, for the second one, I have t equal to negative 45 minus 19 divided by negative 32. Simplifying that first one, negative 45 plus 19 is in the numerator, and that'll be negative 26. So I have negative 26 divided by negative 32. That then simplifies to t equals 13/16. For the second solution, I had negative 45 minus 19 in the numerator, and so that'll be negative 64, and then that denominator is negative 32. So that will simplify to t equals 2. So I now have two solutions, 13/16 of a second and 2 seconds. And so I can summarize then the answer to this question. The question was, when is the height of the baseball 30 feet? So I can say the height of the baseball is 30 feet So the height of the baseball is 30 feet, 13/16 of a second, so 13/16 seconds after it was hit, and again 2 seconds after it was hit.